Representation of those three tables in the database. Basically, you have this table here, UB customer, you have the UB service location, and UB meter. UB stands for utility billing. These tables were created to house all of the information that you see on the screen when you open these screens up in Impressa. So when we're looking here, you can see these little lines and arrows. They're all connected by the customer ID connects to the customer ID on the service location table. The service location here connects by location ID to the meter. So you have those two there. So whenever you create a service location, you create a meter and you need to add that meter to the service location, it connects by this location ID. So you'll have the same number on both of these tables. And this is a number that you never see. So this is a unique identifier that's behind the scenes that you never see. Your service location, when you look at that screen, you're going to see, let me go ahead and get that opened here. You're going to see a address here in the top. Let me grab one that's maybe not a warehouse. You'll see this search for address, 101 Briarwood Drive. So you have the street number and the street name. That's made up of your building number here and your street name here, these two fields. So it kind of combines those and puts them here, but that's not the unique identifier. The parcel number is not the unique identifier. The unique identifier is a number that's directly associated with this one service location here, all the information on this screen, and it's kept behind the scenes and you never see it. But it's actually, if you want to think of it this way, that unique identifier is this specific service location. So what that means is that if you change this street name to a different street, or if you change this building number to a different number, you're changing what you see on the screen, but you're not actually creating or changing the service location itself. You're just changing the labels that are associated with this service location. And that's the same for your customer screen and your meter as well. You have your customer ID as a unique identifier that you never see. Your meter ID is a unique identifier you never see. And any information that you change on that customer screen is associated with this number behind the scenes that you never see. So that's why you can sometimes end up with duplicate service locations or duplicate meters. The system shouldn't allow that to happen if it's the exact same information, but sometimes it does. Or if the information is slightly different, you can get what appears to be a duplicate. But behind the scenes in the database, because it's a multi-relational database, those records are actually two very specific, very different records in the database. So that's why it's important to make all of this information unique as possible, because you don't want to have multiple 101 Briarwood Drive service addresses with the same parcel number. So if you had 3 or 4 of these in the system, you might get confused on which one is attached, and you may be thinking that one of these is attached to a customer or a meter is attached to it, when it actually is the wrong address because the unique identifier behind the scenes is different. I know that's a little bit deep or complicated, but that's just a little bit of the background on how all of this works together. So with this, just a little bit more here. The service location really is the central point of this. We consider these the big 3, and originally when the software was created, it was created with that in mind, that you can have a unique record for the customer, a unique record for the service location, and a unique record for the meter, and they can be swapped out or moved. Your service location is the only thing that is physically kept in one place in the real world. So that's why I consider this to be the pivot point, the central point of all 3 of this relationship here. So Your service location will connect to your customer, and your service location will connect to your meter. Your service location, whenever you apply charges, your readings go to the meter, but the charges and the money is associated with the service location. And just really quickly here, the reason that you have the option to search for a service location under your balance tab is because you may have more than one, and you may only want the charges that are associated with this one service location. So that's marked with that service location. So it's important to not create duplicates in the system. That's the whole overall reason why I was going into the background of this, is to keep from creating duplicates intentionally or unintentionally in the system. Now, you may have some things set up in your system a different way, and the Impressa is extremely customizable to your needs. So if your company does it slightly different, and you do allow, and you know for certain you do allow some duplicate service locations, that's fine. This is just a general basic way of setting up the system. All right, so just jumping into how to create a service location here, since this I consider this the pivotal portion of these three. You would go to the service location screen, hit the green plus. With that, anything that's in bold will need to be filled in order for this to be able to be saved and create a new service location. So we need to give this a parcel number. Parcel numbers don't have to be unique. You can have multiple with the same. They should be unique. You can do alphanumeric in here. It doesn't just have to be numbers. It can be letters as well. Your city, you have the ability to add a city here. Or if your city is not in here in this list, of course they should be already created, but this wrench right here will allow you to create a new city. Brings up a code maintenance screen, and you can add to that as well. You've got your plus and your X, your delete here. Now with this, if your city, if you have a list of cities in here, and you cannot delete them unless they're not used anywhere in the system. So if they are used somewhere in the system, you just can't get rid of them. You would have to find where they're at and remove them from that listing, and then you can come in here and get rid of them if you needed to. So once you have your city, your state, your zip entered, and your country, all of these are drop downs. You can select whatever you actually have created in here. Your street address, of course, is a drop down as well. You can create new ones, but be very careful with this, because this is another field that you can create duplicates in or enter the wrong information into. And when you enter the wrong information, it can really become confusing. You may have several different misspelled street names, and then you have to go through and clean those up as well. I'd like to go ahead and put a building number in there as well, even though it's not bolded, but that just makes it, when it combines this to create the search for, it's just another way to keep it unique so you don't create duplicates. And then once we're there, as long as, I think on this screen here, the only thing that you need is that. So if we hit save changes, it'll prompt us, are you sure you want to save? Click yes. If there's something that you're missing, it will pop a message up and let you know that you're missing that information, so that you'd have to put it back in before you can continue. All right, so that's the service location here. We just created this new service location. Then if we need to create a meter, this one has a few more fields that we have to fill in on it. It's going to be the same situation here. The meter numbers that you see in this list are, again, this is the screen name for this meter number. The actual number is the meter ID behind the scenes that you never see. So this meter number should never be repeated in the system, but it possibly can be if you have a different meter model. So our system allows you to create duplicates here of meter numbers, but you must have a different meter model in order to create a duplicate. And we don't suggest doing that. I mean, if it is an actual duplicate and you have two different meter models, two different companies manufactured this meter, and they send you each send you a meter with the same meter number, we still suggest that you make one of those unique by adding a number or a letter to the end of it, something to uniquely identify it. When you're applying readings, the system really does not handle duplicate meter numbers well. It randomly chooses the one that it thinks is important, and you may be applying the reading to the wrong meter. So with that, in order to create a meter, you hit the green plus. Again, anything that is bolded here, you will want to fill in. So once that's filled in and you select a meter model from your list here, that's not the only thing that we have to have filled in. If we try to save right now, it's going to give us an error. So we have to have a journal description filled, receipt date. All of this information here needs to be filled in, so it's letting us know that. And in order to do that, we have to switch to another tab down here. And you can see that we have more fields that are bolded. If it's a brand new meter, it's probably the reading is going to be 0. But if not, if you know you've tested that and maybe put a few gallons of water through there, you can put in the actual reading here to start with. Then we can switch over to the stock information, and this is where we would need to add new information here, the vendor. Of course, there are quite a few vendors here, so I'm just going to randomly choose one here. Of course, they probably don't create meters. Receipt date, whenever you actually receive this in. And this is just one method of creating a meter. This is on the meter screen itself. I do know that we have a bug in this version of the software that is not going to allow me to save this without having to shut down the software and get back into it. So I'm not going to complete this process. But the unit cost, you'd have to have something in there. If you track inventory, you'll want to make sure that you put the unit cost that you purchased that meter at in this field. If you don't track inventory, then you'll have a method set up for that. Your asset distribution needs to be filled in. And then I believe that is all the information that we need. Now we do have this here, and this is one of the things that was saying it needed. So we can give it a date, a journal description, and an account. So accounts payable, invoice date, whenever the invoice was created for it. Once you have all that information in, then you are able to save this and move forward. Again, I'm not going to save this meter because in this software, there's a slight bug where it doesn't make it where we have to close down and get back into the software. All right, so I'm going to hit that there to get out of this. I don't want to save my changes. Then I'm going to open the meter screen again and just pull up a random meter to use as an example. All right, so a few things here, how these relate to each other. We'll get into that a little bit here. We do need to go through the creation of the customer, but the current physical location is supposed to be where this meter is physically located in the real world. And we'll see how that relates to the service location here in a bit. So we're going to jump over to the customer screen and create a new customer. Of course, y'all might have your tabs here situated in different ways. I like to keep mine just standard. And it makes it easier if you learn the standard way of doing things. Then once you get it all set up, if it does revert back, or for some reason we have to revert it back to the standard, it makes it easier for y'all to navigate if you know where everything is. So starting out with creating this customer, you're on the screen again. The green plus will give us a new account. There are options in order to allow you to create your own account number. This database here does not have that set up, so it's not turned on to create your own. So it's going to generate an account number for you. Either way you go with that, whether you're creating your own account number or the system creates it, you have to have all of the bolded fields here on this tab and this tab, along with a bill to address, filled in before you save, or you're going to lose that account number that you're generating. So if you typed an account number in and you have to follow a sequential list of account numbers, and you don't give this customer a bill to address, then you're going to lose that account number. It's going to be locked out where you can't use it again in the future. So, of course, create a customer. The last name is important. First name is not so important there. Whatever billing cycle they're in, whatever bill class they're in, and whether they're active or inactive. You can create them as active or inactive. Then the personal tab, of course, the creation date, the bill class is either normal or draft, and then we have to add a bill to address. So I'm going to add a new. There we go, Street Road. Just making something up there. Very creative there. Of course, wherever we're needing to bill to here, all of this information, if you need the extended zip, all of that can be put in as well. This here is the bill to address flag. It needs to be selected. In some systems, you have the ability to make this an owner or a tenant, and that's just a setting that we set up. That would have to be selected as well. All right, we're going to click OK on this. So that gives us a bill to address, and at this point we can save. And once we save our changes, we now have a new customer. It's assigned us a new account number, and now this exists in the system, and we can connect our service location to this customer. So on the customer screen, you have a service location tab. If you go here to attach, you could type in your service address number or the parcel number and pull that up. I am a big fan of copy and paste. I use keyboard shortcuts, or you can right click and copy. Come back here, hit attach, right click and paste, and that brings up our new address that we just created. We're going to go ahead and attach that. Once you attach it, you have to save. So we saved the changes, and now this service location is associated with this account. If this customer owns the location, you can set up and have them as a location owner. That's done on the location screen, the service location screen. So if we need to attach this customer to the service location, then we are going to, or the customer's already attached, and we can't see that yet until we refresh or until we close out of the screen and get back into it. Of course, we can use the Goto button here. Okay, and now we see the occupant number here, which is our account number, and the last name of the person who's in this, who's attached to this property. So if we wanted to make this customer the owner of this property, we would go to the owner tab on the service location screen, enter that account number, 421, and now all we have to do is save the changes, and he now owns that property. And when you go back to the customer screen, refreshing the data there, you should be able to see that he owns this location. So this customer here, account number 008421, has a locations owned tab that shows all the locations. If he owned more than one, they would all be listed here. All right, so that's how you can connect, the two different ways you can connect the customer to the service location through either just as a tenant or as a owner, or both. And then we need to add our meter here to our service location. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to go ahead and just copy the meter number, go back to the service location, click on the connections tab, and you have to click in this section down here under meter number. When you do that, hit the green plus, and it's telling us we cannot attach a meter to a non-active group. So it's not going to allow you to do something that for the most part, it's not going to allow you to do something that the system can't do. So we need to activate our group. We need to give it a book in sequence because it would give us a problem with that as well. And I think the system will actually organize your sequences for you. At some point, I've seen that happen. We can connect a rate code to this if we needed to, but I think just with this active and a booking sequence, it would allow us to add a meter. So I think we have to save first, then click down here again, the green plus, take our meter number that we just created and paste it in and search for it, and it brings it up to the top of our list here. Click the OK key, and now you can see that our meter is down here. We can save the changes. All right, and now our meter is associated with the service location. So with that, when we look at our meter, we're going to go ahead and refresh here. And now you can see that our meter numbers here, our physical location has changed to the service location. That's because at this point, you should physically have installed that meter on that service location before attaching it here. And this is just telling you that this meter is currently physically located at the service location. That is the same thing that you're going to see on the storage tab of the service location here. You're going to see the storage of the 5/8" meter with our meter number here that matches our meter number here. Because the storage tab of the service location is what is actually stored at that service location. So you would also see your MIDs, your backflows, anything else that you have down here that's attached to the service location would be under the storage tab. That's where it's physically stored at in the system. You have the Goto button, which will allow you to go to that meter and look up the information on that meter. You can see now that we've attached the meter to the service location that we have a customer name here and it doesn't have the account number, but it does have the customer name, and it does have a Goto button here that will allow you to go to that customer account. Of course, it's going to take a little bit to load because it's loading a brand new customer screen here. But that is how you create, that is one of the methods of creating the customer, the service location, and the meter. And you can see how these are associated with each other here. Now, the reason why we call these the big three is because they're like puzzle pieces. They're interchangeable. You have a service location that is based as a physical place in the real world. If you need to change the meter, this meter is associated with the service location, but it can be changed out, it can be moved, it can be taken off of the service location, and you can add a new meter to the service location. The customer, you may have a customer that lives here for 6 months or 6 years, and then you have him move out and somebody else moves in. So the customer is not stationary. But if the customer moves out of this service location, you still retain the records of this customer having lived at the service location, and all of the financial information on the customer here associated with this service location. And the same for the service location. The service location contains the history of who has rented the service location and who's lived here, what meters were attached to it, and so forth and so on. The way you can see that, just to add a little bit extra here, because we have a few minutes, if you look at your service locations transactions or your customers transaction tab, or even your meter has a transactions tab. So these transactions are all of the operations, or most of the operations, that have happened to these three pieces of the puzzle here. So with your customer, you have transactions, you have the financial. You can see all of the financial information here, or in different forms, you can filter that information. You have the non-financial, which would be your customer, your usage. So this is a customer history. We can see what's happened today. Account was created at 11/22. The account status changed to active because it was created at the same time. Account billing cycle was changed as well. So when we saved, all three of these had happened at the same time. You can see what happened here. Now this says old value, but we actually, because this is the creation of the customer, this is actually the old and the new value. If you do make a change after this to the account status or billing cycle, your old value would stay the same here because you can look at the customer and see what the new value is. You can look at the details tab. So then you have your service address was added at this time at 11/23, and so forth and so on. You can see all the way down, historically, everything that has occurred on this customer as far as service locations being added or removed, account status changing, anything. Most of the things that you can do to the customer account will be recorded here. You can see usages whenever you apply usages through the meter to the service location. That gets recorded for the customer as well. You can see all the bills that were printed, the work orders, the locations that have been associated with the service with this customer will be here. If they've ever had a final bill, it will be here. This is imported. This is anything that's been imported, usually custom things that can be imported into the system here. I've never really seen anything associated with this, so I'm not quite sure what sort of information you would see on the imported tab. Then you have your payments. Of course, you can see all payments that were made, any refunds that were done to the account. So this is your, I would encourage everybody that's in the software to really become familiar with your transactions, because that it will help you keep track of anything that's happened in the past. If this customer is no longer associated with this service location, if they moved out, you can still look at and find where they used to live and how it was connected. Same thing for your service location. You have your transactions. This is the older way of doing things. The screen hasn't been updated yet. Eventually, it's going to function the same way that the customer transaction screen does. But you have your general, and use this green button here to flip it around. You can see what's happened. We've attached the income center. We've attached a rate code. We attached a group. Service location owners changed. Everything that we did in the past 30 minutes or so is going to show up in the transactions here and let us know what we've done. Any meter changeouts, any work orders that have been created for this service location specifically, a customer history. We can see who has lived at the service location or who's been associated with it. Charges and usage again, anything that's applied. If you have a service location that's been in your system for 20 years, you can search by date range here on any of these fields. So you can narrow down your search. Again, on the meter, you'll have generally the same information. And just to finish up here with one last bit of information that may help in your daily operations. Anytime you have a meter change out issue or you're trying to apply charges to a meter and something's not working correctly, the very first thing that I always do when troubleshooting is I go to the meter, I'll look and make sure that the physical location is where we expect the meter to be, and then I'll jump over here to the Transactions tab and go to the Financial Locations here, and I'll flip that around to see where it's financially connected. Now, your physical location is where the meter is stored, and you can only have one of those. You can't have more than one physical location for that meter because it's a physical meter that is stored either at the warehouse or somewhere else in the back of your truck or at a customer's house. So it's got to be somewhere physically, one location. But financially, you can have it connected to multiple locations. So on the service location screen, under the Connections tab, this Connections tab here is your financial location of that meter, that connection to the meter financially. The reason for that is that your meter numbers here is connected to the group here, which is either service or service 2 or how many ever groups you have, but it will be connected to a group, and then that group will be connected to an income center and a rate code. And that's how you charge for usage to the service location to the customer through this financial connection. I have seen where it's intentional that you need to have this financial financially connected to more than one service location. So the system does allow you to do that. For the most part, just a simple meter set is not going to happen very often, but it is possible to have the meter connected here on this screen and stored somewhere else, and you won't see a meter on this screen. So that's why I always check that to make sure that if we're expecting to only have one financial location, I will double check here and make sure there is only one. I will also double check and make sure that I don't have a duplicate meter number. I copy the meter number here, I look at this QBE search, and with that I have meter number selected, so I will enter that information here, the meter number, and I will hit fill, and it will pull up any meter that is attached that has this, or any meter in the system, whether it's attached or not, that has this meter number on it. And we don't want to see duplicates here. If we do see duplicates, we need to determine which one is the correct one and get that corrected. All right, so I have gone over just a little bit here, but I believe that is pretty thoroughly covered.
Absolutely.
And I will hand it back over to Kayla.
All right, so we haven't got any questions in yet. I think that is, you know, a testament to your awesome information, covering it pretty thoroughly. Do you think you have any questions that you get from customers when going through these three processes?
Just the relationship between the three, the customer service location and meter. Really, we don't have a lot of questions that come up in the creation of any of these three. We do run into some issues, support issues with the creation of a customer forgetting to do the bill to address and losing that account number. Unfortunately, if we had created this account number would never be available again if we didn't put in a bill to address. We can't recover it through SQL. I mean, there's nothing we can do for that. So with this model, every time that you create a new customer and you're not entering your own account number in, the system looks at the last account number, the highest one that was created, and then adds one to it, and then enters that and says, okay, I'm holding this for when you save this account. And then when you forget to put your bill to address in, you save, it goes, oh, we can't do anything with this, we're going to hide it. And then it looks again and says, okay, so you're going to start over, you're going to try this again. And you create a new customer, and it says, okay, the last one that was created was the 008422. So now we need to add one to that, and this one disappears. So unfortunately, there are just some things that the system is non-recoverable from. So that's mostly it. That, and then most of the other support issues that we have is dealing with duplicates of meters and service locations. So, and we've kind of covered all of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I haven't received any additional questions from our participants. We can wait here about another minute or so, and if someone has a question, they can shoot it back over here and we'll answer it. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday, and that's something to look forward to.